Hey there, guys. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master of Motivation podcast. Man, what a beautiful day it is today. I am so excited to bring another guest to bring some motivation, education, and inspiration to our audience. If you are watching live, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up, drop some comments, and please share the video and go over to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast. So let me introduce our guest today. This is Coach Darryl Johnson. He is the master instructor and founder of Harder to Kill, with over 35 years of martial arts experience and more than 30 years of teaching self-protection. A certified Krav Maga instructor since 2001, he holds a black belt under Itay Gil, is a certified Muay Thai instructor, and a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo. His training has impacted law enforcement professionals with the California Highway Patrol, U.S. Border Patrol, and Customs Border Enforcement, earning him Krav Maga Instructor of the Year in 2021. After opening his first martial arts school in 1997, Darryl expanded his mission from local instruction to global mentorship, empowering individuals and communities to live fearlessly. Through his signature programs and online platforms, he blends practical self-defense, mental resilience, and fitness coaching to help people overcome fear and unlock their inner warrior. Coach Darryl, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, my friend.
It's going to be a great day. We had a great pre-show conversation, just kind of getting to know each other a little bit more. And it turns out that we've got a few contacts in common and going way back, talking a little bit about martial arts. So, yeah, it's going to be great. And look, here we got one person watching already. We got Mr. Cox.
Hey, I know that guy.
See, I didn't even ask you, but I didn't know that you knew Mr. Cox either. Mr. Cox is my Krav Maga instructor.
Yeah, Mark and I did our first certification together.
Holy cow. Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I'm glad he's watching. I know he's out in where are you? New Jersey, right? For Born to Risk on the yacht experience. So pretty cool. Yeah, we're both co-authors in this new Born to Risk series. But yeah, let's get started. Is there anything I missed in that bio, in that opening, that maybe you just want to talk about real quick before we get started?
No, the bio's good and it's pretty accurate. I mean, and I can't put everything in there. When you have 30, 40 years of experience like you and I do, you got to condense it down. So yeah, that's pretty accurate. Martial arts has been the fundamental cornerstone of all my teaching, even though I've been in teaching instruction and fitness and personal development and, public speaking, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Right on. Very cool. Well, again, it's great to have you on the show. And Jeremy Jackson was our other connection, and he's a certified instructor with you, someone who I worked with in the Martial Arts Industry Association, one of my first clients actually as a consultant. So that was kind of cool. But listen, we're going to talk all things martial arts, and so let's just get started. Your martial arts, your journey in martial arts spans over 3 decades. What first drew you into self-defense training, and what kept you committed all these years?
Well, one of the primary drivers of me choosing self-defense martial arts as my cornerstone of activity was when I was a kid. I was really overweight and I was extremely introverted. So I absolutely hated team sports because I'd be the kid that didn't catch the ball, didn't make the play, didn't block the guy. So I'd have 10 other guys all upset with me, and I hated it. And it was miserable for me. So when I got into martial arts, which my younger brother started before I did, and I'd already moved out of the house at this point, but I saw how much fun and positive the environment was. Like, this is really cool. Then when I got into it, I realized that, wow, this is really even though it's a team, you're part of a family in the school, your results are dependent upon what you do. So it's very, very individual that way. So if you show up, you do the work, and you pay attention and you work, you're going to get great results. If you don't do those things, the only person you really penalize is yourself. So the positive environment and the individual aspect of the results was what really drove me to it. What kept me in it was helping people get that kind of magic I felt. Like I went from being overweight and insecure and painfully introverted to eventually being public speaking in front of classes every single day. And, I lost a lot of weight, and I go, this is the kind of thing I want to share with the people. And I've always been a natural trainer, so it was really easy. But I go, this is to me, it was just short of being magic. And I'm, martial arts talk about that all the time. Yep. So I go, this is something that has to be shared. I need people to feel the same way I feel about when you have that kind of, you have the inner championship moment, like, wow, I've done something that I never even imagined I would start, let alone finish. So that's what's kept me in it, is the teaching. And obviously I love challenge. I love learning new things. Like I remember when I moved to San Diego in '93 to teach professionally, right about that time, there was a little event that you may have heard of called the UFC came out. And at the time I was doing Taekwondo and full contact kickboxing. I'm like, well, I'm watching this stuff. I'm like, like I have no idea what I would do if somebody tackled me to the floor. I mean, I have an idea, but so I got into judo and jiu-jitsu in the 90s, and I just thought that was amazing, because it was like, this is wow, for a very little amount of training, you get a huge bump in skill. So I really enjoyed that part. So I started teaching those techniques to my students as well. And yeah, so that just took off from there.
Yeah, it's so common and so often that you hear that students come to martial arts because they didn't enjoy team sports. They didn't fit in. It wasn't their thing. But it really truly, martial arts is an individual sport and activity with the support of your coaches and instructors and teammates, classmates. And it's so funny because I have a post that went up on our social media today, and it's my son kind of doing they get a little huddle discussion at the end, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say about this post later on today, and that's exactly it. Is that here it is, this activity that helps build the individual, but yet you have all these people surrounding you that are supporting you, but your progress doesn't really rely on them. It's just supported by them. But yeah, I mean, we hear it all the time. Every time someone comes to me, it's like, yeah, we tried soccer, we tried baseball, and it just, my kid didn't fit in. He's the last one picked. He feels insecure. And then martial arts, you come in and you get all this confidence and just all of the benefits. So, how old were you when you started martial arts?
I officially started martial arts like a week after my 18th birthday.
Okay.
So I've never had anybody pay for my lessons. I always took care of myself. I started my fitness journey probably right at the first part of my senior high school, because I was overweight. I'm like, you know what? One day I just got to change it. So I got really into fitness. So by the time I started martial arts, I was like, so in high school, I was about 5'7" or 5'8", my senior high school, and I weighed 213 pounds. And I wasn't doing any weight training. So I wasn't like a bulky 213, just a fluffy 213. And I went to the doctor, and they weighed me. I was like, holy moly. And then I saw some pictures, and I got to change it. So by the time I started martial arts, I was already lost about 25 pounds. And I started weight training. So then martial arts just accelerated that. So by the time I finished my senior in high school, I've been doing martial arts for about 5 or 6 months. I've been doing fitness for about 8 months. I was down about 70 pounds. I was a whole different person. And so the combination of getting in shape and doing martial arts and being in that positive environment, and then for the first time in my life, being an athletic person. I was, not only was I leaner, but I was doing something athletic that was challenging, that again, if you told my 15-year-old self that you'd be doing, jump, spin, heel kicks and things like that, I'd be like, come on.
Right.
And here I am, I'm doing that. And this is so much fun. So, but I was just 18 when I started martial arts, literally within a week, and it's never looked back.
And that's kind of a different perspective. A lot of school owners that I talk to, they started martial arts when they were kids. I started when I was 10 years old. My mom and dad did pay for my lessons, but there came a time actually that my parents couldn't afford the martial arts classes anymore. And my instructor has done this for many people. He worked out, a way to trade with my dad. And that was just kind of how we paid for our martial arts. And it made me appreciate martial arts so much more because I knew what it took. And as I became a teenager, we talked about this, I taught for free for a long time, but, in reality, I wasn't teaching for free. I was actually getting an education. It was almost an internship to prepare me for what was going to become my career. I didn't really know it at the time, but I started getting those first little, the seeds were being planted very early on. So as a more mature person, I mean, you just adopted martial arts as a lifestyle, whereas some of us kind of grow up in it, and it's like we don't know any different. You know what I
Correct.
mean?
Yeah. My daughter's the same way. She started when she was 2.5. So I have there's two lifetimes I have in my memory. I have a memory of being an overweight, shy kid with very little social skills. And then I was a nerd. I was into Dungeons and Dragons and science fiction. I read a lot. And then I had still those hobbies, but then as I moved into adult, I had an athletic endeavor and I was able to. So when I tell people now that I was overweight and insecure and shy, they simply don't believe me. I have to really convince them because they see now, like, oh, but you're up there teaching classes and you talk to people without being hesitant. I'm like, well, yeah, it comes from training and years of training and experience. But yeah, so I have a whole memory of not being athletic and confident and easy to speak in front of people. So it's a dichotomy there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, we gain so many other skills that we don't even recognize sometimes along the way, through the martial arts.
Oh, well, and this is one thing I talk about a lot about with people who are thinking about training is people sign up for martial arts, especially with Krav Maga, which I specialize in now. I want to learn self-defense and I want to, get in shape, which is phenomenal. It's great. Obviously, I love that. But what they find is like they build a tribe. They have the benefits. I can't tell you. I'm sure you experience the same exact thing. It's come to you and said, you know what? I came here because I wanted to learn some self-defense, but man, I've gained all these other things, the confidence and the aura and the presentation and just I've made friends. I've had students met in my school and get married and have kids, not having children in the school, but you know what I'm saying. But they, the catalyst was their meeting, and people have gone with business partnerships and so it's really, and again, going back to the way I talked about earlier it was the first time in my life being with my team sport experience where I was in a positive peer environment. Everybody was cheering for me. As I talked about, the vibe, the tribe of the school, individual activity, team support. And I think that's, you get that with wrestling and anything else, any kind of sport like that too. So it's not unique to martial arts, but if you're not an athletic kid, if you're not a jock and you're not doing the traditional things, it might be the first time as it was for me where like, man, I want to do something athletic. I want to be active, but I just never felt supported. I never felt like I had someone cheering for me other than like maybe your mom.
Yeah. Well, and talking about that, like, my whole family, actually, my mom, my dad, my two younger brothers, we all at one point did martial arts together. I started, my middle brother started after me, my parents got involved, and then my youngest brother got involved. That was the order of it. But, we were all involved. And so martial arts was very much a family activity, but martial arts also became my family. I often refer to our school as our, it's our second family. I mean, my kids have grown up with so many of the other kids in the school who are now, young adults, and people like Mark Cox and the people that I trained under or trained with became just as close to me as some of my aunts, uncles, and cousins. My martial arts school was the first place. I always wanted a Letterman jacket in school, and I never played teams. I never ended up playing team sports because martial arts kind of consumed my life. And I remember to this day, like, my instructor created these jackets, and that was like my Letterman jacket. And I was so proud to wear it because that was my team. That was my tribe. That was my group. And I think that that's the other thing that, really helps keep people involved over time. I mean, the relationships within the school, because, we spend hours training together and then literally, sweating and bleeding on each other, in training. I mean, we go through some of the hardest times in our martial arts training with these people. So, and over decades, the tribe changes, the group change. There's a core of people, but like, some people leave and some people come back and new people come in. I've watched this happen. It seems like about every 10 years, the group changes. And I'm proud to say that now we got a really great team that I get to work out and train with and keep growing with. It's literally what keeps me going in the martial arts.
Oh, 100%. And you talked about being a teacher, about learning. One of my favorite phrases I use is that is the man who teaches once learns twice.
Yes.
So now because when I started teaching, first it was like, hey, Mr. Johnson, help this new guy out, learn this. We had 1-steps back then. I started in Taekwondo, and we did all stuff like that. And then it was like, then it got to the point like, all right, well, my learning how to teach class. So now when I have instructors, I give them lesson plans and things. But back then it was like, all right, you're going to go teach this class. Okay, what are we doing?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Like, great. I'm like 19 years old and I'm teaching 35-year-old adults. It was a little intimidating in the beginning.
Totally.
But it's like, you learn how to reverse engineer things. It's like, well, I got to now take what I learned and then I have to explain it to someone who may not, we have the several ways of learning. This guy may not learn the way I do. So now I have to reverse engineer it. And I really enjoy that challenge. But and then so you go from being the student, and then even when you start teaching, you have all these high level black belts above you, and then you start moving through there, and now you get to the point like where you and I are, where we're the guys up here, and everybody else is down below, and it's like it's a weird situation, but the tribe changes and your roles change, and the impact you have on the community within and outside the academy changes. So
absolutely
right, but you will develop a core. You have family of guys that train with for 20, 30 years,
Yep.
And it's a pretty powerful thing. And, I wish more people would have the opportunity to experience that. And that, we'll get more to that later, but yes, that's it is really fun the way that works out.
For sure. Absolutely. And if, Mr. Cox, when I was, I think it was about 18, 19 years old, I just gotten my 2nd degree black belt. This is back 1993. It is when, and so he gave me my second job. Basically, I started my instructor school first, and ended up getting to teach in a lot of the instructors that open schools, teaching for them. But he's probably as well as my first instructor, Dennis Ichikawa, been with him since '93, and he's seen this a lot in his school as well. But we've got this core group. It's really cool. It's really amazing. You have kind of a similar. You started in Taekwondo. We started in Tong Sudo. You talked about 1-steps, right? I throw out every now and again. I actually slip and when we're practicing a technique or something, I'll be like, and when you do 1-steps, and my students look at me like, what is a 1-step? And I'm like, no, punch defense, whatever. But what led you from Taekwondo to the next art, or to walk me through how you got to Krav Maga and applying some of the other principles into your teaching?
So as I mentioned, I was, when I moved to San Diego, I was doing full contact kickboxing, which I enjoyed. I was doing Taekwondo as an instructor, and I came to San Diego to teach martial arts professionally. And, I really wanted to continue training. And as you probably know, once you start teaching full time, your training time goes way down.
Oh yeah.
And I was still a young guy. So I'm like, I really want to train and go. And then I saw the UFC. I'm like, wow, that's a whole different ball game, because before that it was, there wasn't really something that was talked about very much. And when I started martial arts, it was like, what kind of karate do you want to do? It wasn't like what we have now. So I started enrolled at judo in a local community college, and was lucky to have an amazing instructor. I've had some judo instructors over the year that were not amazing, but this guy was great. And so this is so much fun. I learning some stuff on the ground with takedowns and balance. And then I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in like 94, 95, and go, wow, that was so much fun. I mean, I was getting my butt handed to me regularly, which, at this point, I think I was a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo, and, I'm a full contact fighter, I'm a 2nd degree black belt, and I'm getting just handled on the floor by guys with 4 months training, which is humbling. A lot of people have a hard time with that concept. I'll put a white belt on, I'm good, let's go. So I really got into jiu-jitsu. I loved it a lot, and I took to it really well. And then opened my school in '97. I was like, you know what, this is great. So I was teaching Taekwondo, and we had a system of my master instructor, and we did his stuff. And then, but I was teaching a lot of the judo and jiu-jitsu on the side, because I wanted to learn these skills. And the basic stuff isn't that hard, and it's very effective. So you don't have to be a master at it. So then I got to the point where I'm just not doing a lot of Taekwondo. I'm doing mostly something else. And then I got, I'll tell you the story. So I was up in Fariz's school up in LA, and we were doing a seminar with Melody Schumann and, little ninjas back in the day. And during lunch, we were at had this table, and we were about 4 or 5 guys that was sitting there, and a friend of mine now, he was John Gabriel, and he's up in Temecula. And he's like, hey guys, you know what? I just started this new thing. It's amazing. It's self-defense. And I go, well, I've been really kind of looking for a self-defense only program. I looked at some of the padded assailant stuff. He was like, if you ever met John, I don't know if you've never met him. He's like super high energy. So it's very infectious. So he's like, yeah, man, you got to check it out. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm like, all right, well, I got back to San Diego and I looked into it, and I went up to the LA Center a few times. I really went there, 3 or 4 times to watch classes, talk to the guys, go, well, this is the kind of thing I want to do. It's something that's very practical. And for me, one of my frustrations, one of the reasons I started doing full contact fighting is because when you're doing the stylistic, we did Taekwondo, it's fun, but it's very, very reserved, which is fine. You don't want your students hurting each other. So I took my love of full contact fighting and ground fighting and go, well, I want something that's just very simple. I'm not looking to have a cultural exchange. I want people to come here. I'm going to do self-defense. So that's, this is what I want to do. And I got hooked on it. So I started in 2001. And, as I got more into Krav Maga, and I still did jiu-jitsu, and I ended up getting certified in Muay Thai as well. I go, I love Taekwondo, but I don't love it like I love self-defense. And so I felt like I wasn't doing the art of Taekwondo justice. I wasn't, I didn't have that artistic love of the expression. So I said, I'm going to stop doing Taekwondo and let people who love it do it. So I didn't want to disrespect it, if that makes sense to you. Like, I
understand that.
Kind of half-assing it. I didn't want to do that. So I want to commit myself to this reality-based stuff. So so in 2005, I stopped teaching Taekwondo, and I was teaching just hybrid Krav Maga and hybrid versions of what we were doing. So I did a Taekwondo for about 16, 17 years. And then I just started, it shifted all over to reality stuff, Thai boxing and jiu-jitsu and Krav Maga. And I did some Filipino martial arts as well, but that's kind of the progression. So it's been Taekwondo, full contact fighting, to judo and jiu-jitsu, and then eventually into Krav Maga and Thai boxing, et cetera.
Amazing. Well, that's a lot of experience and a lot of different things. And, I'm going to bring up here in just a second one of our sponsors of the show and someone who supports it, talking about different styles. And this is more of a sport style. So let's check out Raptor Extreme Karate, and we'll be right back.
Right on.
All right, guys, and we're back. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and I'm here with Coach Darryl Johnson, founder of HTK. We've been talking a lot about martial arts to get started, and as you just saw, the Raptor Extreme Karate Program. If you're a school owner and you have any questions about the Raptor program or how to implement that to your school, I can connect you with Kevin Kowalczyk, and
it was a lot of fun.
We can help you out. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's actually it's one of the programs that we offer in our school. You were just talking about how, you started in Taekwondo, got into the full contact, went into judo, jiu-jitsu, eventually evolved into Krav Maga, added the FMA. I mean, that's just a lot of stuff. And, I was very similarly that, I started in Tong Sudo and just kind of went through the different arts. And what I have found is not only did I continue to add to our program what I felt made our system stronger or what we were teaching better and more effective for our students, really for me, it was what kept my passion alive in martial arts. I mean, I still to this day love and appreciate Tong Sudo and the art part of it. And as you can see with the Raptor Karate, the performance part of martial arts, I loved the tournament scene back in the day. We did a lot of tournaments. But it goes in seasons, then I got into jujitsu, and then Krav Maga came in, and then my first experience with jiu-jitsu was more of a Japanese jiu-jitsu with Chris De Palma. Did Katsugo jiu-jitsu for 10 plus years, and now I'm working Brazilian jiu-jitsu again, and it's man, there's so much to learn in the martial arts, and it just keeps it exciting and keeps it fun, right?
It really is true. And there's even when you get into any one of those arts, there's just a whole lifetime of knowledge. You'll never learn it all, and that's always the exciting part. Is that you never, you can master a segment of what you're doing, but there's just always something else to learn. And if you had all the time in the world, man, I would love to just do different martial arts all the time if I didn't have to do stuff. But learning is amazing, and it keeps you young too. Keeps you fresh.
And earlier. Very early, if you guys missed this, go back and watch the beginning. But you talked about throwing a white belt on, and some people would have a hard time with that. Getting into Brazilian jiu-jitsu again after many years. Putting on a white belt for me was very humbling, but at the same time very exciting because it meant that I had a new beginning. I know it sounds cliche, but I have this new beginning and this new excitement for martial arts all over again. And like just having that white belt mentality and that white belt mindset, I think that there are a lot of martial artists out there, unfortunately, that don't embrace that mentality. No. And I'm a 8th, 9th, 10th degree supreme grandmaster, whatever. And I know it all, and it's crazy. And I love when I get to train with people that are just open to learning, open to listening, open to sharing. I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%. And, I've met people who just, their ego or sometimes it's their ego investment, and sometimes they have a product investment. They're like, I am known as being the ultimate guy. I can't afford to look not amazing. And I understand that from a business point of view, but from I'm a lifelong student. I mean, I love learning new stuff. Like right now, this week I was learning something about doing funnel design, which is nothing to do with martial arts, but it was something new and exciting. Like, wow, this is something I don't know. And I love being around people who are better than me at something. I don't always want to be the smartest guy in the room. If it whether it's martial arts or physical fitness or web design or personal development, I like to be the person who can absorb something. I mean, I want to be able to share, of course, but it's not always about me. I want to learn from this guy, this girl over here. She's got an amazing story, and I think not being open to that, I think is a limiting. It's a limiting belief for sure. And I don't know anybody who's very successful in the long term that is not afraid of being the beginner. And I think that's right. And in martial arts, very humbly, yes.
Chances are, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
100%, yeah.
Right. Wow. I mean, if you have a growth mindset, and like you said, 100%. I've been on stage. I've had the opportunity to share my knowledge. I'm in the spotlight in my own school when I'm teaching. But at the same time, I in order to help those students, because if I stay here, my students are going to only get to here.
Yeah, you bottleneck them. Yep.
And so if I want my students to have an opportunity to learn more, I have to be willing to learn more. And, it's just, it's going to happen over the course of your career where you sidestep, and maybe you adopt something that maybe, you thought just wasn't a good fit, but maybe now is the time. I remember a time where, I wanted to learn Krav Maga. And so, but I really wasn't open to gun defense. I wasn't into guns or anything at all. And I remember telling Mr. Cox that, we live in a pretty safe area. I don't, it's not really, and now it's kind of a joke because, we look back and you just have to turn on the news to know that there's a lot of crazy people everywhere, no matter where you are.
Doesn't matter where you are.
Moore Park is supposed to be the third safest city in all of California, I believe. And so I kept hearing that, and so I was like, gun defense, I'll learn something else. But sure enough, timing changed. My kids were getting older. I'm hearing more and more stuff that could be happening. I'm like, yeah, I should probably go and learn a little bit more about that.
Right.
Right. So sometimes timing can be everything too. Well, let's talk about this. You've worked with elite law enforcement agencies, CHP, Border Patrol. What lessons from those experiences have translated best to everyday personal safety for the average person?
Well, working with law enforcement is interesting, and one of the things when people find out I do Krav Maga, they assume like, oh, you must have a bunch of cops training with you. I'm like, no, because most cops are humans, and a lot of them aren't gung ho like we are about self defense and defensive tactics. You have now what I found is the guys who do the DT or they do the special response teams. Those guys are all about it. So they're really excited to learn it, and then they'll often go back and share with their own guys. But the cool thing about working with law enforcement is if they do it long enough, they have real life experience with violence, and so they'll often ask you really smart questions, like, "What if?" Not I don't mean like the what if, like, "What if 6 ninjas drop through your roof?" Which you get those questions in class, but they're like, "Well, in my situation, I have XYZ, or, we're not allowed to do ABC. How would you respond to that?" So you get a really good feel for real life violence because they've experienced it on their level. Because they're obviously going to be, they're making intentional contact with people who are less than stable sometimes, whereas you and I might make an incidental contact. So the biggest lesson I got is to listen to their experience, and then it helps me to formulate responses that would make sense for even the everyday person. Now, if you're not a law enforcement, for example, if you're not law enforcement, I don't need to focus on takedown to prone to handcuffing. That's not a priority for the average person. But with law enforcement, that is something they have to learn how to do. And I have to apply our techniques in a way that they can modulate their use of force continuum that makes sense. But really, I think that they just ask really smart questions about the tactics that we use and the techniques. So it helps me really craft the curriculum in a way that helps everybody. So I think it's one of the biggest lessons I learned from working with law enforcement, especially, again, if you do work with the special response teams, they're going to make even more contact with less than desirable people than the everyday beat cop would.
Mm-hmm. And talk about things, again, the average person who, is just getting started in Krav Maga. Talk about some basic tactics that would help anybody maybe just listening.
Yeah. So here's one of the things that I tell all the new people about Krav Maga, well, self-defense in general, is most people, especially in a relatively safe society like ours, anywhere in the US, they have a really poor concept of distancing. So they don't understand how far away someone needs to be a threat or to be safe. So one of the things we work on right away is understanding, like, you don't allow people to get right up on you if they have unknown intent. And when I started with Mr. Cox, we had access to surveillance videos that were not really available to the public. Now you have YouTube and TikTok and X, where you see videos of people fighting all the time. Mm-hmm. And so you have a really good idea of how things can happen. And I would say if you're a beginner and you have no idea to self-defense, you need to understand your zones of safety so you don't allow a hostile individual to get close enough to harm you without having at least some kind of a awareness of where you need to be and and how to position yourself in a safe way. And that is, we've heard it say 1,000 times, situational awareness was way more important than fighting skill. I mean, but that's not fun to train. I mean, it's fun to do punches and pads and, but learning how to, manage your environment where you put yourself in a place that's safe, how to keep people at a distance, how to identify threats, how to identify an exit, how to identify a possible weapon, whether to be used against you or in your favor. Those kind of things don't cost any money. And that's something when I do all my online, if someone wants to get a free report, I can show them a video, but I will usually give them some tips on situational awareness and distancing, because that's going to be more important in the big picture.
Mm-hmm. And talk a little bit about how, as a trained professional that teaches people in special forces and in law enforcement, but also to the average citizen, you talk about situational awareness, and not just situational awareness, but just simple, like, I'm sure you, like many of us, are often, eyeing the door, recognizing people, watching behaviors.
Yeah.
Talk about that just a little bit, because I watch whenever I teach a self-defense seminar. One of the most simple pieces of advice I give is stop looking at your phone for 5 minutes as you're getting in your car or walking into a building, right? I mean, because we just see this like so much. Or don't be fumbling through your purse trying to find your keys.
Yeah.
Have your keys ready to go, right? So talk about some of those things too, because I think that just those simple tips save time and create some safety mechanisms right out of the gate.
Right. So the cell phone thing wasn't a thing when you and I started martial arts.
No.
So that's a new phenomenon, and it's very important, especially if you are like if you're a 230-pound dude who's 6'1", you're probably not going to be in a situation where you have to defend yourself very often. However, most people are not like that. So the phone use is really important, especially if you're walking through a parking lot or a parking garage, or you're anywhere where you're not in a well-lit, crowded area. It's a habit you have to learn when you walk into a room to immediately identify not only who is in the room that might be a threat without being paranoid about it, but where's the exit? If something happens, and you have to get out of here, and it could be fire. It doesn't have to be a violent offender.
Right.
You have to be aware of the exits and whatever obstacles might be in your way. So if I'm at a restaurant and I need it, and the exit across the room, how many tables are in my way if I have to get out that way? Or what weapons are available. If you have, and obviously you have a knife and fork, but you have, your salt shakers, you have your drink glass. And it takes a very little amount of preparation to be aware of this. And again, you don't have to be paranoid about it, but you have to be aware. And I'm sure you see this a lot. People have zero awareness, not only of spatial skills, but just simple obstacles and exits. And I would say one of the most important things to learn, this is very difficult for people to do, is if you are in an area where you feel like you might be, you're out on the street, you're walking down the road. If somebody's approaching you, make the intention of making eye contact with that person. Okay. Mm-hmm. Don't stare them down and mean mug them, but when you make eye contact with somebody, they acknowledge that they're there. They're like, well, this person now is not the easiest threat, but if you're like you talked about, if you're on your phone and you're walking around, you are looking like a threat, like a victim, and you won't be able to identify it. So if you're on your phone, someone comes and smacks you in the face and grabs your phone, how are you going to get a report about that? Somebody hit me. Well, what did he look like? Was it even a he? I have no idea. So the eye contact thing is super important. Keep your head up. You don't have to be paranoid, but look around, find where your exits are, any weapons, and anybody who's acting out of pocket. Your subconscious is a great filter for anything that is out of the ordinary. Our conscious mind, you're thinking about when you're picking up your kids from school, when your boss wants this email done. But your subconscious, when you get that feeling in your stomach, that's not magic. It's not vibes. It's your subconscious as with its pattern recognition to go, wait, something's not quite right. Mm-hmm. My normal pattern is being interrupted by something that's off. If somebody's too long, somebody's standing in an awkward way, somebody is standing where they shouldn't be standing. It doesn't mean something bad is going to happen, but it means your subconscious has triggered you to, hey, pay attention. So don't ignore those feelings. Again, it's not magic. It's not cosmic vibes. It's your brain has two levels, your conscious and your subconscious. And if you train your subconscious to look for those weapons and those odd people, you'll be ahead of the game a mile.
Sure. And last week, if anybody was watching the show, we were talking about children, in situations for children, and just that gut feeling. Trust your gut. And I know we say don't be paranoid, but listen. I'd rather be a little bit paranoid than totally oblivious, and so, just looking around, paying attention to concerts really kind of get me, because and when my kids were little, going to Disney, I love going to Disneyland. I love being at a concert, but like when you start, when you've been educated on situations that could happen, it's like if you watch a horror movie, what do all of us do when you watch a horror movie? You're like kind of looking over your shoulder naturally for the next day or so anyway, right? But it's like we see all these things that happen on the news, and you go to a concert and exits and trying to find a path, and where's their cover, just all these different things. And it's just, some of my friends make fun of me. They're like, dude, like relax. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to just totally relax, but at the same time, you want to be smart, especially when you're with your family.
Yes. If you are out by yourselves, it's one thing, but when I have my kids with me or I'm with other, and when you're with your non-martial arts friends, especially because they are often super clueless, so you have to, I feel responsibility. And as a guy, if you're the man of the household, or you're or if you're the senior guy in the room, if you get, a bunch of teens, if you're doing a youth group and there's a bunch of 14-year-old kids with you, they need help. They need someone looking out for them.
Sure.
If you're as clueless as they are, then we're just asking for trouble.
Well, going to a restaurant, it's just a simple thing of, I pretty much make it a habit that if I'm with my family, I'm the one sitting in the chair that faces the door.
100%.
Right. Or I trust my son,
Yeah.
or I'm out with friends and I want to grab that. They're like, why do you want to sit there? I'm like, I just want to see the door. Unless you got it, just
right. Yeah. If I'm with my martial arts buddies, it's a little different. But yeah, otherwise, I'm like, I just want to make sure that something happens. I have at least a heads up.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone comes in with 5 guys, if 5 ninjas drop out of the ceiling with swords, that's going to be a bad day for everybody. But at least I want to have a fighting chance of seeing it coming.
Right. And if anything else too, just for recognition, like you said, and hey, Grandmaster Tom Bloom is watching. Mr. Bloom, How are you, sir? Good to see you out there. We were talking about the phone, and he said your phone is one of the best forms of self-defense when the camera's on and pointed. And so when we're talking about people having their phones up in their face, at least use it when necessary. Take a picture, film, video.
Oh, it's way better than an eyewitness for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, they already have it readily available. I remember a lot of times in self-defense seminars, we would kind of recommend carrying a Kubaton and always having your Kubaton in your hand ready. Mm-hmm. Now it's the cell phone. So all new stuff, right?
Yeah, well, these cell phones are pretty beefy. You can use them for some.
You can smack people. That's right. That's right. So, in 2021, you were named Krav Maga Instructor of the Year. What did that recognition mean to you personally and professionally? Talking about titles and awards.
Yeah, I'm not a paper chaser in that regard, but it was cool to be recognized. And I was blessed that at the event we had a lot of really well-known Krav Maga guys in the room. So these are my peers, people that I've trained with for a long time and years. But it's really nice, and I think more importantly for me, the students like that. They want to know that the guy that they're training with, that they trust their safety in, is not obviously a tough guy on the floor, but he's recognized by a group of peers that are influential, and it's great conversation too. So, but mostly I just love being at these events where I get to share time in person with people that I'm fond of, and oftentimes, especially in today's age, it's like you might talk to your martial arts or your buddies, it's only through Zoom or on the phone or through Facebook messaging, and then when you get a chance to see them in person, it's really cool. And then I also got to share that with other people that I know who also were awarded various titles at that same event. So I really enjoy those. But it's good for the school, it's good for the students, and it gives them a little bit more of a reinforcement that they're on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, talk about surrounding yourself with the right people and being in a group of people that bring you up. I want to bring up one more sponsor of the show. This is about the Connected Leaders Academy and Jose Escobar.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that was Jose Escobar, Connected Leaders Academy. He gave you the info if you want to connect and learn a little bit more about it. Man, it has grown I was lucky enough to be invited in very early to the program, within the first 20 or 30 people in, and now we're just hundreds all over the world. It's definitely a global connection opportunity. So check it out, guys. And we were just talking about Darryl earning the 2021 Krav Maga Instructor of the Year award, and how cool it is to catch up. That's kind of one of the things that I miss about the Martial Arts Industry Association. Used to put on the Martial Arts Super Show every year.
Yeah, that was fun.
And it was just so cool to connect with everybody and see and share. And, we're all passionate about martial arts, and just to have that time together, and the purpose was to, educate ourselves on different topics. And there was people all over. You talked about Melody Johnson earlier. You got Roland Osborne. You got Mike Metzger. The whole crew. There's a lot of events going on out there. And before we went into the commercial there, we were talking about, different Krav Maga groups and organizations. There's a lot out there now. I can remember 20, 30 years ago, not as many. And then there's the YouTube videos. What's your take on some of the YouTube videos that are out there, with someone teaching, you got two guns pointed at you from the front and the back, and you got someone grabbing your legs from this side, and they you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is an interesting topic because, as I mentioned before we started, I've been shooting YouTube videos, instructionals of some kind, since like 2008. Before it was even YouTube, there's something else before that. I don't know what it was. And the challenge I have there's two challenges I have with YouTube, with instructional videos online. One is, if like when I do mine, which is fine, someone will always come on and go, "That'll never work. That's bull crap." And which is it's not an unfair statement, but my response to that, well, okay, well then what is your version of that? Because I might want to learn something. So I have no problem with someone looking at my video and going, "That's terrible," but they don't usually have a suggestion of their own stuff. That's point number one. Point number two is the challenge I had, especially since YouTube's really blown up, I would say in the last 10 years or so, is I'll have students come to me and they're like, "Hey, coach, I saw this thing on Krav Maga," and I'm watching. I go, "Man, that's..." Now, sometimes it's a little different version of what I teach. The Krav Maga I teach now, 80% of it's not what I taught in 2001. It's similar or different variations, but sometimes it's not even remotely, because there's principles in Krav Maga. One of the reasons I like it. And so it really muddies the water a little bit. I can't tell. Every time someone has come to me as a, "Oh yeah, I heard about Krav Maga and this guy was doing X, Y, Z, and he's showed me the video." I'm like, "Is this guy your friend?" No. Okay. Cool. Oh, then let me tell you what I would do. And I don't like crap on them, but like, here's what I would do, or here's why I wouldn't do that. But it does have a problem with diluting the water of what we do, and really it's just something we have to deal with. The other spectrum, and the spectrum would be to have somebody regulate that. Now, that somebody may or may not know what they're doing, that may or may not have our best interest in mind. So if I had to choose between an unfettered mess of information that I have to sort through, or somebody who may or may not align with me, dictate and gatekeep that, I'll choose the more freedom. That's I kind of steer that way anyway. But it does complicate things when I have students that will approach me on whether or not something's legit. And then now, if they're my student, I have the benefit of being able to show them what I would do. If they're not my student, if it's just somebody on YouTube looking around for Krav Maga, or I wouldn't even say it, just self-defense, because as you mentioned with your first example, it may not be Krav Maga, it may not even be self-defense, it might just be pure fantasy. It's like my favorite one is the no-touch people, the magic spinning, it's like again, I'm not going to say there's nothing to be said about internal power and this stuff, but I'm not buying this stuff, and I don't teach it. But if you want to learn it, that's fine. But I got to tell you, if you come to me and you tell me you're going to knock me out without touching me, I'm down. Let's try it.
Right.
And my fighting days are kind of over, but I'm game. I'm game.
Yeah. Now you mentioned something about Krav Maga. There are principles to Krav Maga, right? Krav Maga is a self-defense system.
Yes.
Right. And so explain how that, in your definition, how that is different than other martial arts that teach self-defense, because I think you nailed it with fantasy, right? Like I could come up with like the coolest looking fight scene,
Sure.
right? And it looks really exciting to watch, but how much of it was actually practical and how much of it actually follows the principles that are taught in Krav Maga?
Right. Well, we do the fight scene choreography. When I teach summer camps for kids, we put together choreography for fun. But the principle of Krav Maga is something has to be as close to your natural responses as possible. That's one of the principles, because we don't want to have to undo excessively what your body would naturally do, but it has to be modified a bit. It has to address whatever the most important threat is. So if somebody's holding a knife to my throat and their groin's open, I could kick them in the groin first, but that isn't the principle of Krav Maga. The Krav Maga's principle is I address the most important urgent threat first, even if something else might be simpler. So that's an important principle. And, you know, we want to do, so I always tell, I use the champagne, or I guess you could use a soda. So if you have a can of soda and you decide you're saving it for a special occasion, you know, it's I don't know, it's something special, or champagne. One of the problems is once you open that soda or that champagne, you have to use it. You can't just put it back in the fridge 4 days later. It's going to be out. So once you've made a decision where you have to aggressively, or where you have to proactively defend yourself, somebody has crossed a line of either, you know, aggression or safety for your family. Once you decide to go, you have to go with extreme prejudice. And this is really important. At the same time, once your threat is no longer present, you have to de-escalate with the same amount of prejudice. And this is where some people get in trouble. But one of the problems I have with a lot of self-defense people is they'll teach this self-defense concept of, okay, I block a punch, or I break a wrist hold or a shirt grab, and then I just stop there. Like, man, if somebody's willing to grab my neck and or they're trying to hurt me or my family, I am not going to stop until I know that threat is no longer a threat. It doesn't mean they have to take them out of the gene pool. It just means you have to make sure that threat's abated. And that's not going to happen very likely if you're trying to play it safe. You know, if you're trying to like do the minimum amount of effort to stop an aggressive assailant, that's a problem. And then Krav Maga is notoriously viewed as being very aggressive and almost overkill. But I only would have someone use these skills if there's a distinct and obvious line of safety being violated. So it's not about like I used to run an MMA fight team. I had guys that would train to fight, and sport fighting is very, very, very different than self-defense, although it looks the same to the untrained person. If you watch an MMA class and you watch a Krav Maga class, we might even be doing the exact same techniques for that drill, that class, but the intent and the application is very, very different. So people get really confused by that. And so the principles are address the immediate threat, very aggressively defend yourself with as many techniques and combatives and strategies as necessary, but also you have to de-escalate when that threat's no longer present. And that's contextual on, are you a soldier? If I'm a soldier and I'm armed and somebody attacks me, I have to assume they fully intend to kill me, because you're not going to attack somebody unless you're cuckoo. So your response would be different than like I live in San Diego. I go downtown a lot. There's some people down there that hang out on the streets and sleep there that are just a little bit out. And so I've had many times where someone will run up on me and threaten violence. And of course, I've never had to use violence, but I also made a very clear distinction. Like, look, man, this is not going to be a good idea. We need to stop right here. And that usually works fine. But if they, went further, you take it further too. Is that answer your question? Yeah,
it does. And I mean, one of the principles that comes to mind to me that I think for martial artists, I know for me being a Tong Sudo practitioner, right? We always focus on defend. And one of the principles in Krav Maga is attack the attack.
Yes.
And that's very counterintuitive for a martial artist who is used to stepping back and doing a knife hand block, versus bursting in and attacking the attack. So I just think that go ahead.
Savage and relentless. When you to make that decision and that line has been crossed, you have to do it like that. Although otherwise the chance of success drops off a lot.
Yeah.
So you're right about that.
Yeah, and as I'm learning, even our coach in jiu-jitsu will tell us, if you're defending, you're losing. And so that was a huge because in my mind it was always, I'm defending. Everything was going back to defend. Even in sparring, we would back up to create. Taekwondo would do this,
Yep.
back up to throw a kick,
Yeah, you gotta
to
have
score a
room.
point, right? So it's just, it's definitely different. So if someone has never taken a self-defense class, what would you say is the single most important mindset shift? And we touched on this a bit, right? That they should make today.
Make sure that you understand your life is worth protecting, and you will do everything it takes to preserve it. And that's kind of what we just talked about a little bit. Is many people have a real. We live in a civilized society. We're not fighting for our lives every day. Like in some parts of the world, they are. You might be living in a village somewhere, and some other, 4 guys in pickup trucks and machine guns roll into your town, and it could be all over for you. So we don't have that problem here. But it's very important that you are willing, and then consequently learning how to be able to do whatever it takes to preserve your life or the lives of your family. A lot of times we'll have students, and one of the biggest challenges in civilian Krav Maga, non-law enforcement, is people being aggressive enough, like we just talked about, because it's not their nature. They're like, I want to be nice. I go, well, imagine someone breaks into your house and you have small children there, whether they're yours. They're 6 years old. They can't. You have to tap into that mama bear or that papa bear mindset, and that works for you too. If you're the head of the household and someone takes you out, which tactically would be the smart thing to do. If I was a bad guy, I would take out the tough guy first. You got to make sure that you do everything you can to prevent them happening, so that the people under your care are no longer in danger, or at least minimize that. And that's that aggressive mindset, that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to defend my life, is way more challenging than most people are aware of. And as an instructor of self-defense for many, many years, that's one of our biggest challenges, is to get people to be able to get into that and really just flip that switch, go from defense to offense and do what it takes. That's an important mindset shift.
You totally read my mind as soon as you said the mama bear mentality, because I often tell women, we'll be teaching a self-defense seminar, a bunch of women, and they're hitting the bag, but they're doing cardio, instead of like smashing it. And all I have to say is, rather than thinking of defending yourself or protecting yourself, I said, what if your child was standing right next to you? How would you react then? And you just know that in their mind, boom, that's an easy switch. So I mean, again, you read my mind on that one. So looking back at your career, what's one story or experience that still fuels your passion for teaching?
I'll tell you one that sticks out in my mind. Is obviously several. So one time I was teaching, at a Krav Maga school here in San Diego area, and I had a guy. It was my student. He was a big, soft-spoken guy, overweight. Very, very mild-mannered, and he'd been training with me for probably about 6 months. And he comes, I was in my office, and he comes to me and goes, "Hey, Coach, can I ask you something?" He goes, "Well, yeah, well." He goes, "Well, I want to tell you what happened to me." He goes, what happened? He goes, I was out at I think it was a football game. This is when the stadium was here. And, and this guy was giving me a hard time, and he's been drinking, and, he started pushing me, and he tried to punch me, and I grabbed him, and I did like 5 knee strikes to his body, and he dropped, and the fight was over. And I think he was concerned I would be like upset with him. I'm like,
perfect.
That's great. I'm like, you did exactly, you didn't start the fight, but the guy put hands on you, and then you also stopped when he fell down on the ground, was no longer a threat. I go, that is exactly what I would want you to do. I don't want you to hurt anybody, but I don't want you to be hurt either, especially because you're my student. So now you're part of my family. So I care more about you than I do this other guy, because then he's a stranger to me. But the way he was such a mild-mannered guy, and he lost like 70 pounds in my program, but it was so, he wanted to be like excited and proud, but he was concerned that I'd be judgmental about how violent he was. I said, no, this is exactly what we train for. I go, you took care of a threat, you solved the problem, you didn't use excessive force, but you were not afraid to physically protect yourself and those around you. And that was just but again, this guy was like the gentle giant. He was like 6'4", just, he was the guy in class, had a hard time punching hard. I'm like, man, turn it up. I go, he's like, I don't want to hurt my partners. And, you know the type, but that's a story. That's a really cool story. I'll never forget that.
Well, and, bringing back kids, whenever a child, we teach all our kids, listen, don't start the fight, but you always end the fight. And I've had parents come and, can you please tell them that it's okay to defend
So
themselves?
many times.
And I'm like, listen, here's the deal. I said, if you don't start it, but you end it, because they're worried, for kids, they're worried about the consequences of,
Yeah.
they're going to get in trouble at school, whether they started it or finish it. It doesn't really matter. And I just have to have an agreement with my parents. And I review this a lot with them. I said, parents, how many of you are okay with this? And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, so here's the rule. If your kid protects themselves and finishes the fight and they happen to get in trouble, where are we going for ice cream should be the next question.
Yes. 100%. I've had that conversation dozens and dozens of times where, Jimmy's not going to, this kid's bullying him and punching him and pushing, he won't fight back. And I've talked to Jimmy, go, look, same things. Like, I don't want you to start it, but don't let somebody abuse you. And,
Right.
and you have a skill set. And even my own daughter's had to deal with this because she's been trained since she was a toddler. So she's really good at this stuff and she's dangerous. So I have to make sure she doesn't go crazy. And but sometimes won't express enough. I go, look, you're nobody's punching bag. Don't start nothing, but make sure you solve a problem if it exists. And that's yeah. And the kids don't want the instructor to get mad at them. They don't want sensei upset, which is great. But you got to understand that you are worth saving. And this is important that you put the time into yourself and you're not afraid to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Whether you're 6 or 60.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, Coach, I've had a great time chatting with you today. I hope that everybody that's watching it live or will watch this later, you take something away from this. Is there anything that you want to add that we have not talked about?
Well, nothing specifically, except that one of the changes I've made in my own journey is, and I've realized that to come into a martial arts school takes a lot of guts. I remember the first time I did it, probably remember, well, if you grew up into it. So one of the things I've changed is I do a lot more work now with people who aren't coming into the school because I know it's a big challenge, whether it's geography or just intimidation. So I do a lot more work with people who they want self-defense, they want fitness, they want this stronger mindset, but they, for whatever reason, aren't willing to, or able to come into a school. So I do a lot more stuff now outside the academy. So that's my career shift, if you will. I'll never stop teaching self-defense, specifically Krav Maga. I love Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, all that stuff. And so I will be doing that until I'm literally unable to do it. But I also realize that asking someone to show up at a seminar or show up at an academy and get ready for class, that's a big ask. And a lot of people aren't ready for that. So I reach out to them. I do a lot more work offline or out of the academy than I do online now.
Yeah, absolutely. I found this, especially, during the COVID times where we couldn't even have people come in our school. We had to get kind of creative in how we would reach people or serve people. And even prior to that, we had started doing a lot more, just visits. We're very involved in our Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I offer to all of our businesses is, hey, listen, I know that you can't always get out of the office and you can't get into class and sometimes you're working late and you're just not going to make it. I said, but I'm here, I'm available, and my team and I will be happy to come into your business and just go over a few safety tips or go over a few, sometimes just teaching them how to strike properly or what it actually feels like to hit something. Because one of the things that I notice most is some men and women have never felt what it's like to hit something literally as hard as they can and kind of be like allow themselves to do that. So I agree. That's a good opportunity to bring us to them instead of trying to get them to us. And, and then we see some of those people do want to continue with their training
because they get the spark lit and they want to continue on with their fitness journey or their martial arts journey or, but if they never take that first step and meet people where they are. And, and one of the things that this is something really quickly I want to go over is you and I, I'm sure, have done dozens, if not hundreds of business functions with martial arts. I was in the fitness sphere for a long time. And when those people that go to these things, they're like us, they're confident and they have presence. I spent about the last 5 or 6 years focused on going to business conferences of people who are not in martial arts or fitness. And a lot of these people do not have that confidence and that presence. So that's one of the main drivers of what I do now is help people to feel like you and I feel. When we walk into a room, I'm not worried about getting, beat up, or I'm not worried about being, judged because I can't keep up with my kids. So I want the everyday person to feel the kind of confidence that they get through martial arts training, but they just can't or won't, or haven't never thought about training or martial arts or getting a workout program going. But I meet these guys and they're, they make money, they have a great career, but they just don't have that presence and they miss it. And they may not even know that they miss it. So we take that for granted as martial arts guys.
We totally do. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're right about that. We walk into a room and, we've been trained, conditioned, and we've just done it for so long that we walk into a room and usually control the room. A lot of people come in and just kind of sit, sit in the back, Yeah. So no, that's awesome. Well, I love what you're doing and I love having you on the show today. I hope that everybody that watch this, again, takes something away from it. Do us a favor, like, share, comment, go to YouTube, subscribe, Master Motivation Podcast. And Darryl, where can people follow you or find you or learn more about what you have to offer?
Probably the easiest place would be either my website, coachdarryljohnson.com, or htkarmy.com. That's my easy access subscription where I teach stuff online virtually, and we do events in person too. I have, as you do, I have a dozen things going on, but coachdarryljohnson.com or htkarmy.com would be the easiest.
All right, that's it, guys. Well, check them out. If you have any questions, reach out. Otherwise, I will see you guys back next week for another guest on the Master Motivation Podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. Go out and make it a great day. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, folks. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you, sir.